Chapter 4. Rebecca is going to be the different people, and I'm going to be the narrator. All right, Chapter 4. My Friend Jacob. For a long time, it seemed as if Adoniram was right. There were no big problems or troubles in his life. He graduated from the town school and decided to go to Providence College.
Do you have to go to college?
Abigail asked him.
Why can't you stay home or work in the town? I don't want you to go away. I want to go to college, Abigail,
he said.
Think of all the wonderful things I will learn. Maybe I will be able to study medicine and become a doctor, or perhaps I will study law and become a lawyer, or even President of the United States. That would please Father,
Abigail said.
Still, I will miss you very much. Don't worry, sis,
Adoniram said.
I will only be at college for a few years. Then I will come home and get married and set up a house right over there. You can teach my children and read and write. Your children will learn. Your children will probably learn to read by themselves when they are 3 years old,
Abigail said. Adoniram laughed.
Please don't remind me of that. I remember how proud I was that I could read, and now I'm going off to college. I will be doing a lot of reading there.
The day arrived for Adoniram to leave. He tossed his trunk of clothes and books onto the top of the coach, then ran back to the house to hug his parents and his brother and sister goodbye.
I will be home soon,
he said.
I love you all.
As the coach moved off, Adoniram looked out the window and waved. Then he settled back into the seat and thought about the wonderful things that were ahead of him at college.
I will work out all the puzzles and problems of college, and everyone will be very proud of me.
Adoniram enjoyed his time at college very much. He studied hard. He learned more Greek and more Latin and more Hebrew. There was more math than he had ever imagined there could be. He studied history and science and grammar. He also made good friends. One of his best friends was Jacob Eames.
Adoniram, I like you,
Jacob said one night. A group of young men were studying in the dormitory. Others were playing games. Some were singing a loud song.
You're a good person, but you have one problem. What is that?
Adoniram said. He had come to enjoy problems. He could figure them out easily.
You believe in God,
Jacob said. Adoniram sat up straight.
What do you mean, Jacob? Of course I believe in God. Don't you? Not me,
Jacob said.
It's not fashionable to believe those things anymore. Make your own way in the world. You don't need God. What are you saying, Jacob?
Adoniram said.
I have never heard anyone speak like this.
He looked around, but no one else seemed alarmed. Some of the young men even nodded their heads in agreement. Adoniram stopped writing letters to his parents as often. Instead, he began to listen to Jacob Eames. At last, he decided he too would trust in himself instead of in God. He would work out his own life in his own way. He graduated from college with the highest grades in his class. Then he went home to tell his parents about his new way of life. His family rushed out to greet him. He had been gone 3 years.
Adoniram, you're home.
Abigail threw her arms around him and cried. Father and Mama both hugged him. Elnathan shook his hand and patted him on the back.
You should see what we've been doing around here while you've been gone,
he said. Adoniram knew he should tell his family right away.
I have something to tell you,
he said.
I no longer believe in God.
Mama stared at him for a moment, then turned and quietly walked into the house. Father stood tall and stern before him.
I will trust in myself to solve this problem,
Adoniram thought.
Have you listened to me preach all those years, son, and have not come to know the Lord Jesus?
Father said.
Have you thrown off all the training your mother and I have given you? Have you come home to break our hearts?
Father turned away and walked into the house. Adoniram looked at Abigail and Elnathan.
That was mean, Adoniram,
Abigail said.
Even if you feel that way, you should not have told Mama like that. You have broken her heart.
Abigail and Elnathan walked slowly away from him. Adoniram decided he would solve this family problem his own way. He would leave. If the family didn't want him around, he would never come back. He would go out into the world and do whatever he wanted.
I don't need you,
he said to the house that stood silently before him.
And I still don't believe in you,
he said, looking up into the silent sky. Adoniram left home. He joined a group of traveling actors. They rode on horses from town to town and put on plays. Then they got to a new town. When they got to a new town, they would find lodging at an inn. Then, when they left that town, they would run off without paying their bill. They spent all of their time having parties and putting on plays.
I'm glad my parents don't know what I'm doing,
he said to the actors one night.
Why?
Someone said.
My mother cries every night because I'm an unbeliever. If she knew if I was a traveling actor not paying my bills, she would cry all day too.
He took a long drink from his glass and then laughed out loud. Late that night, he thought of how he had laughed at his mother's sorrow.
Trusting in myself isn't getting me anywhere,
he thought. He remembered the things his friend Jacob Eames had said to him.
Adoniram,
Jacob had said,
you don't need to be a Christian. You're a young man. Have a good time being an unbeliever like me.
Adoniram felt strange. Part of him wanted to run home and hug his mother and tell her he was sorry. But another part of him wanted to keep going down the selfish road he was traveling. He could not sleep, so he packed his things and got on his horse. He rode away from his friends.
I wonder where I'm going,
he thought as he traveled down the road away from the acting company. He rode alone for several weeks. He stopped in small villages and met many people. He talked to everyone he met and tried to find the answer to the question, should I be a Christian or should I trust in myself? One afternoon, he talked for so long, it began to get dark.
I'd better find a place to stay,
he said as he got up from the table and waved goodbye to the people he had met that day. He trotted his horse a few miles down the road to an inn. There were candles lit inside. It seemed to be a warm and inviting place. He settled his horse into the stable, then went inside to speak to the innkeeper.
Do you have a room I could rent for the night?
He asked.
I have just one,
said the innkeeper.
But I am afraid it might not be very comfortable. Why not?
Adoniram asked.
because there is a man in the room next to it who is very, very ill. He groans with pain all day and all night. You might find it quite difficult to sleep." "Don't worry about that,"
he said.
"I am an actor. I shall pretend I am dead and won't hear any of it."
Adoniram laughed, but the innkeeper did not laugh as he unlocked Adoniram's door with a large brass key. But Adoniram could not sleep. The man in the next room was in great agony. Adoniram thought of his days as an actor and how he had acted out death scenes. Adoniram tried to picture the man who was lying in the next room in such great pain. It was probably an old man who had lived a long, happy life. Perhaps his family had been traveling together. Maybe they were all in there with him now to help him through this terrible night. Adoniram began to think about his own death and how horrible it would be if his parents were right and he was wrong.
If the Bible is true,
He thought,
then that man next door will be in heaven or hell very soon.
Adoniram was troubled, but he finally drifted off to sleep. In the morning when he woke, no sound came from the room next door.
Perhaps the man is better now and is sleeping,
He thought. When he went to pay his bill, he asked the innkeeper,
"How is the man who was so ill? Is he any better?"
The innkeeper shook his head.
"I'm sorry to tell you that he died in the night."
Adoniram was stunned.
"Oh,
He said quietly,
that is very sad. Do you know who it was?" "Oh, yes.
said the innkeeper.
It was a nice young man from Providence College by the name of Jacob Eames."
Adoniram stared at the innkeeper.
"Jacob? Dead? It couldn't be. If his parents were right and the Bible is true, then Jacob was now in hell."
Adoniram crumpled down onto the floor. He wept for his dead friend.
"Young man,"
said the innkeeper.
"did you know Mr. Eames?" "He was my friend, sir,
He said, wiping tears from his face.
and I let him die without Christ."
He struggled to his feet, stumbled out of the inn, mounted his horse, and galloped for home. When he arrived, he was dirty, hungry, and exhausted. He burst in through the front door.
"Mama,
He cried, flinging his arms around her.
I am sorry. I have come home to learn about God. I want to know Jesus."
End of chapter 4.